Okay, y'all already know what time it is. If I'm filming at this type of angle, that means I feel like chatting. So, I posted a life update video from like a month ago, which was about, my dad wanted me to be moved out by the end of October. And a bunch of stuff has happened since then that I can't talk about because it's very personal and I'm not going to share other people's business. But at the end of the day, I think one of the things that annoys me about some of the comments I get are people being like, "Oh, well, at your age you should have been moved out. You should have been on your own. You should have been yada 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 whatever." I think people need to understand that not everyone's parents kick them out as soon as they turn 18. Not everyone's parents close their homes to their children. And I'm not saying that because there's parents that don't do that, I'm entitled to that. I'm just saying it's not necessarily, the only option that a lot of people have. I have a lot of friends whose parents don't have any problem with them staying with them, nor are they charging them rent. And I think, people want to judge people basically for living with their parents. But honestly, I feel like in this day and age, living with your parents, if your parents are willing and will allow you to do so, is probably one of the smartest things you could do for yourself, especially if you're not married, if you're single, if you don't have any kids, you don't have a family of your own to take care of, unless there's just no other option or you're like you live out of state. I feel like it's actually smarter to live with your parents if that's an option for you. Because, and especially if they're not charging you rent. Now, me personally, this is my thoughts. I would not charge my children rent if I already own the house, right? Like, why am I charging? Like, if I was charging them rent, it would literally just be to save for them, right? But that's just how I think about it. Also, too, the second thing I want to say, living with your parents does not mean you have failed in life the way some people try to make it seem like it's like you failed because you still live with your parents. Rent is a whole scam. I've talked about this before. If you are paying rent each month, which I get it, most people have to pay rent to live. I mean, there's a big difference between paying a rent and paying a mortgage. When you are paying a mortgage, you are paying towards something that you will eventually own. When you are paying rent, you're literally just throwing money, making someone else rich so that, they are making money off of you having a place to live. So, rent is a scam. And that's why rent being so high is actually horrendous because people are paying so much in rent. Like it used to be, if you were renting, you were saving up to buy a home. But now people who rent can't even afford to save up to buy a home because rent is too freaking high. And so that was always kind of my biggest concern. I was just like, if I'm paying rent somewhere, one, I'm throwing away money towards something I'll never own. And if I have to pay, a super high, which I guess an ideal rent price would be like 25% of your income. Um, Anywhere between 25 to 30, I guess. But really, if you're paying more than a third of your income for your living, you are paying too much. And I know a lot of people whose rent is like half of what they make, which is asinine. So a lot of people my age are still living at home because they want to save up their money, but people also still can't afford to buy a house. So let me just say this. I have friends who have very successful careers and who still live at home. Living at home does not mean that that person doesn't have their life together or has failed at something in their life. If you have a parent who's has no problem with you staying with them, and also people live with their parents for a lot of different reasons. I actually, and this is the funniest story for people who don't know this, when I graduated from cosmetology school, I didn't want to move back in with my dad. I was planning on getting my own place in Atlanta and, doing the whole hair thing. But I actually was forced to move back with my dad because my dad needed me at the time to help take care of his mom, my grandmother. So back in 2019, I graduated cosmetology school, and the next day I became a full time caregiver for my grandmother, which I was doing that because that helped my dad out. That wasn't to help me out, that wasn't to help anyone else out. I mean, it helped my grandma and it helped my dad, and that's about it. So I initially moved back in with my dad because he needed me to help him take care of my grandma. And that's how I ended up being with my dad so long. And actually, even in between that, I had moved out um and everything. But anyways, a lot of people are new to my channel. They just assume they know everything about me, and they don't. They don't know half of the half of the things that I've experienced in my life. Anyways, I just really wanted to make this video that again, um I don't think there's anything wrong with people in their 20s, 30s, 40s living with parents. Sometimes people live with their parents because they are helping their parents, especially as they get older. They might need more help. A lot of people take on caregiving roles, and that's why they live with their house. Also, I feel like it's such like an Americanized view to feel like, oh, it's, if you're 18, you need to be moved out because we're such an individualized society. But in a lot of other countries, it's like it's culturally not normal. It's culturally normal for people to be living with their parents until they're married, or for just families to be living all together in one household. So just this idea, I feel like that somehow living with a parent makes you less successful or you're behind or whatever, I just don't agree with. Secondly, I think, again, my personal thing is just like knowing how rent is a scam. I feel like it's smarter to live with your parents anyways, because you could be saving money and investing it versus throwing it towards housing that you only get for 1 month, right? It's like the cost you are paying. If the average cost of rent is $1,000 a month, not including all the other bills, electric, water, gas, whatever, all bills I used to pay, by the way, um you know that's $12,000 a year. In 3 years, that's $36,000. That could easily be a down payment towards a house. So you can either spend $12,000 a year for just a place to live for 1 year, or you can live at home, save that money, spend that money towards, having your own house. And it's better to own a home anyways than to rent, but or invest it, and that money can make money off of that. But either way, if you're paying $1,000 a month just to have a place to live for 1 month, that's a big ticket item. And honestly, like I said, rent, in my opinion, is really, really high. I remember my mom telling me like when she was in college her rent was like $200 a month. It's that was what 40 years ago, actually 35 years ago. Like my mom's not that old. But, the rent has pretty much over quadrupled, and income has not quadrupled since the 70s, 80s, 90s. It's not quadrupled. It's been maybe 1.5 times. It's probably not, I don't know if it's even doubled. Minimum wage in Georgia, I don't think has changed since like 2006 or something. I don't know the actual stats, but it's been a minute since medium minimum wage. And inflation and all that stuff. But anyways, I just don't understand people who knock people for living with their parents, because again, I personally think if you have parents who are willing, that's one thing. Also, personally, I feel like, and I also want to make this very clear, my parents don't owe me a place to live, right? They don't owe it to me. Would it be great? Or what's the better way to phrase it? I always think about it from just a humanistic view. Like, what? I get people love this idea of tough love, right? Oh, like, we have to show this person tough love because XYZ, whatever. I don't think tough love should come at the cost of, you know, making someone homeless, or I don't know, putting someone in like a dangerous situation. I personally think, what's loving about, being harsh or rude to someone? And I always think about it too, like, is the way God loves people tough? Like, is the way God loves people or loves us a tough love? Because I personally don't think of it that way. I honestly, like I said, I don't know where the idea of tough love comes from, but I think, being harsh and being, well, I'm not going to help you because you just need to learn for yourself type attitude. I feel like God's love, maybe people think of it as being, I'm trying to think, do people think God's love is tough? But I feel like it's different if God's allowing you to go through a situation because he knows the future of that, like the outcome, like where you'll end up. But I honestly feel like for people who aren't God, being tough, quote unquote, tough love, they don't actually know if what they're doing helps. Now, if God is guiding that person's decision to not help you, then that's another thing. But I'm just saying, people who are just like, oh, well, you just need to fall on your face. You just need to hit rock bottom. You just need to do XYZ, whatever, in order to learn. I don't think everyone has to learn from hitting rock bottom. I don't think everyone has to learn by falling on their face. I feel like a smart person, a wise person learns from other people's mistakes. But at the end of the day, um, I personally think like what's the most loving way to treat someone in whatever situation. Now, I feel like it's one thing if I was like, I don't know, a drug addict with a problem that was stealing money from people, or, doing a bunch of, just horrendous criminal activities. And, if I was like tearing up the house, or like doing like, I don't know, just doing something that I feel like is obviously like I shouldn't be allowed to cause harm or whatever in a situation. But I think uh, I think too, it's just like, again, there's just a lot of nuance in everyone's individual situation. But excuse me, I'm tired. I did just take some melatonin. I need to go to sleep. Anyways, I just really don't think it's other people's place to decide or determine what someone or where someone should be in life. Um, and the comment was held, but someone left like just the nastiest, and this person was blocked because at the end of the day, if people are making nasty comments on my videos, I have absolutely no problem blocking people. I will block you and you will never be able to comment on my video again because clearly you have nothing to spew. But first of all, this person was trying to call me Gen Z, which I'm not Gen Z. I was born in 95. Secondly, I just think, I don't think I think it's different to have an expectation of someone's care and concern for you versus being entitled. And I also think too, when it comes to, your parents, most people feel like they're entitled to their parents' love and care, right? As a child, you would want your parents to care for you, love you, and have your best interests, have your best concerns at heart. Now, not everybody has parents who do, you know, love are loving and caring and concerned about their child's best interests, which is very unfortunate. But I don't think that is something a child is not entitled to. Like, I do think that's something at the end of the day a child is entitled to their parents' love and care and concern. Like, that's the two people who should at the end of the day love and care for you are your parents. Um so that's not something I feel like is wrong for someone to expect of their parents. But I understand, feeling entitled. Like, I don't think I'm entitled to my parents' money. I don't think I'm entitled to my parents' things. I don't think I'm entitled to anything that my parents have, earned for themselves, of course. Um, and I think too, it just all comes back to, not every person receives the same. I mean, you only get your parents, right? It's just like you can think about, well, this person's parents does this for them and this person's parent does that. I have people whose parents absolutely know people whose parents absolutely spoil them, give them everything they want, all the desires of their heart, right? And there's people who have parents that are abusive, that don't care, that weren't in their lives or whatever. You don't get to choose your parents the same way your parents don't necessarily get to choose, their children or how they turn out. But at the end of the day, your parents are your parents, and that's that. Um, I don't think there's no such thing as a perfect parent either. Also, there's no such thing as a perfect child. No, I don't know. I think my mom would say I was a really good child. She said I was worse as an adult. My mom tells me I was worse as an adult than I was as a child. Anyways, I basically just wanted to say I think, well, one, I get really tired and annoyed when people um I don't know if it's projecting, but essentially projecting things into my situation than what I've actually said. Also, I think the assumption of, you know, me being this person that's just trying to suck or take something away from my parents, because that's not at all um what I'm even concerned about. I really think it just comes down to, I don't want to be a burden to either of my parents. I don't want to feel like I'm, in the way or stopping, you know, anyone from having something or doing something. Um, and yes, I feel like standing on my own 2 feet is something I aspire to do. Um, and this is not me making an excuse. I think it's truly like I am literally trying to figure out how to do that. It has nothing to do with, oh, well, I need someone else to do this for me, or this person needs to do this for me. It's really just, okay, this is the situation at hand. This is the options available, and this is what I can or cannot do. That's literally it. I am in a real life working through my own problems, my own situation. Um, it's not about, trying to take something from someone, or I don't know. Honestly, that's why I just think, like, again, I'm the only one who has to live in my shoes, and I feel like no one else has to live my life. Um, and there's a lot of things that I can't even talk about because they're just too personal of issues for me to share. But I know a lot more about my situation than than anyone watching, which is why I'm kind of just like, I don't let a lot of comments take too much comments to heart, because um most people don't fully know anything. Um anyways, my goals are always going to be to I don't know. I honestly don't even like focusing on my issues or problems, because all it does is drag me down mentally, and also puts you in like just a self depreciating type of mindset if you're always just focused on yourself and your problems. So I don't really focus on my problems anymore. I just focus on, the things that I can do versus the things that I can't do. So I will. I honestly don't think I want to make another update about anything. And this video is not an update on anything. Really, I was just sharing, responding to basically some people's as assessments. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. people who think like there's an issue with someone living at home with their parents, I personally disagree. I don't see that as an issue, especially if it's done the right way. Um, anyways, I also think there's just way more that I really just can't say. But anyway, anywho, I need to go to bed. So, again, if you're able to live at home and you don't have any response, and also, I just think like there's people whose parents, it's just not a big deal to everyone the way I feel like some people act like it is. Like there are some people whose like their children are always welcome in their home, regardless of how old they are. And I'm like, why do some people think that that's such an issue? It's just like, if someone has parents who don't care that their children stay with them, who aren't bothered by it, why do y'all care so much? It's just crazy to me how some people act like, it's not okay, or it's like breaking a rule to be a certain age living with parents. And I know people who were married, got divorced, they moved back in with their parents, with their kids even. It's just like, for a lot of people, parents are like their safe place. Their parents are, where they go when they need comfort, or when they need love or care or whatever it is. Why would you have an issue with that? Um anyways, I personally don't see that as an issue, and I don't think it's anyone's place to tell someone what they should or should not be doing, or what they should or should not have at their age, the way some people have tried to tell me on my page. Y'all come to my channel, on my video, on my page, telling me what I need to be doing is crazy. Anyways, that's all I really had to say. Who freaking cares, actually, at the end of the day? Who cares that someone lives at home or doesn't live at home? If someone can afford to live on their own, great. If someone needs to stay with their parents in order to save money or whatever, it's just like, not everyone has the same goal to be independent and live on their own for their life. And I don't have a problem, like I said, I've never actually had a problem with living on my own. It's just, I personally just don't feel like I make enough to live comfortably. Like, even if I lived on my own now, I feel like I would still be struggling. And part of it is financial, but also just I have a lot of debt I have to pay off. If I'm paying rent, I'm not gonna be able to make as much towards my debt. And it's not all just finances. Some of it's just managing my money better. I would say it's definitely both, though, because a lot of places I think a lot of places you have to make 3 times the rent, and I don't make 3 times the rent at most of the places near me. So that's also actually a real issue for me, is my income doesn't meet the minimum requirements for a lot of places. So that is a little bit more limiting, and it's not that I'm using that as an excuse, it's just the reality. Unless I'm gonna lie about my income in order to get a place, which I personally wouldn't be comfortable doing, but to each their own. Anyways, like I said, it's really no one's place to tell someone what they should or should not be doing in their own life. Like I said, I guess I just share the things that I deal with, obviously I'm sharing them from my perspective. Um, you know, and my perspective on a lot of situations I've been in changes as I get older, as I mature, as I get wiser. I'm not blaming my parents for me being in my situation. I'm not upset about my dad for wanting me to be moved out. That was never my problem. My biggest thing is I I wanted to feel more established and have enough money saved. That's pretty much it. Is that my dad's fault that I don't have those things? No. Is it my mom's fault that I don't have those things? No. Like, nothing I'm doing is blaming my parents. And that's all I have to say.